topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Good morning, Florida. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show where we bring you the top experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Today's show is going to be new to a lot of you as we have broadened this show from just Tampa to the whole state of Florida. We have two of the greatest personal injury attorneys that are going to be able to educate you, especially in the areas of auto accidents and slip and falls. They have been with us for several years now. We get so many compliments on this show. Let me introduce you to Lauren and Angela, Zervos and Calta, personal injury attorneys. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Good morning, Steve.
I tell you what, it is. I am so excited because now we are broadcasting the show throughout Florida. And if you are in any place in the state of Florida and you are going through an automobile accident, slip and falls, dog bites, a lot of different areas of personal injury, you don't have to strum through the websites and see who has the nicest website anymore. We are bringing you to the finest personal injury attorneys. Since we have a lot of new viewers and listeners, Lauren, why don't you tell everybody about Zervos and Calta?
Well, we're a personal injury law firm. We handle cases involving wrongful death, motor vehicle accidents, bicycle accidents, pedestrian accidents, premise liabilities, which would be slip or trip and falls. If you've been injured on somebody else's property, we handle trucking accidents, limited dog bite accidents, medical malpractice cases, anywhere where somebody's been injured as a result of somebody else's negligence or wrongdoing. Those are the kind of cases we exclusively handle. Zervos and Calta has been in business for over 7 years now, but combined in the personal injury arena, Angela and I have over 45 years of combined experience.
It's almost 60, Laura.
Okay, well, yeah, that's 60 years of combined experience just doing personal injury work, which we're very proud of.
You know, you're not going to, maybe you will, maybe you won't. We get so many letters that all ask basically the same thing. And it is, how do you prove in an auto accident that the other driver was on their cell phone? Get more people ask that.
Well, you know, that is a tough one. A lot of times we will have a client who will tell us when we ask them in our initial interview, you know, did the at-fault driver say anything to you after the crash? And they'll say, you know, sometimes they'll tell us that, yeah, they told me, you know, oh, that they dropped their phone, or they were looking for directions on their phone, or they were on the phone and looked away for a second. So sometimes it's an admission by the at-fault driver. Sometimes it's a witness that is at the scene. That may have had a conversation with the at-fault driver, and the at-fault driver said something. Sometimes it's just a hunch that we have And we will, during the litigation process, we will ask them for their cell phone number and who their carrier is. And we would be able to subpoena the records from the cell phone carrier for a limited time, just before the accident and just after the accident, and try to narrow down whether or not they were on the phone during the time of the crash. So it's not an easy feat to accomplish, but it can be done.
I noticed at night when I'm driving on 95 and I see a car start to swerve into my lane, at night, it's pretty simple to see that they're on a cell phone. Whereas it's not as easy as during the daytime. But I was really surprised about the question people have about how to prove that. But we're actually going to talk today about what happens if a person that hits you is drunk or impaired while driving.
And you want to take that since you're dealing with that right now?
Yeah, sure. Well, it is illegal, as you know, to be driving under the influence. The caveat to that is you have to be under the influence to the extent that your normal faculties are impaired. So you could actually have a beer and drive home, and if it's not impairing your faculties at all, then then you're safe. I mean, we don't recommend that, but I mean, you have to be under the influence to the extent that your normal faculties are impaired, meaning your reaction time, your ability to see things, all of that, all the things that we consider that go in hand with somebody that's drunk. Okay. It doesn't have to be alcohol. It could be a prescription that you have. And you took it and then you got in the car and you drove and it hit you while you were driving and it impaired your abilities. In situations like that, if you are hit by somebody like that, there are ways to pursue additional damages. Your typical damages in a case would be your medical expenses, your lost wages, future medical expenses, future lost wages. You're entitled to your pain and suffering money, which means, the things you've given up, the ability to enjoy life, to enjoy social activities, things that you liked to do, things that you had to do that you now do with pain. And so those are what we consider a non-economic. There's no hard or fast number. But in addition to those typical damages, in a case where you're hit by somebody under the influence, you can pursue punitive damages. Now, punitive damages are pretty much what they say they are. Punitive meaning punishment. It is an element of damages that the court would have to permit if there's sufficient evidence to establish that you are under the influence. And if the court permits punitive damages against that driver, those damages would be decided upon by a jury. And a jury basically is told, listen, this person was impaired. They got behind the wheel of a car. They caused an injury. You have to send a message that it is not okay to get behind the wheel under these circumstances. And so we will be asking you, members of the jury, to charge punitive damages against this defendant in the amount of whatever it is. So if somebody is really, really drunk and their blood alcohol is a point, 2 to 3 times the legal limit, we're going to ask the jury to impose a lot of punitive damages, because it wasn't like that person was just barely over the legal limit. This person really took a huge risk by getting behind the wheel. Punitive damages are a very dangerous thing because the insurance companies exclude that from their policies. So if you get an auto insurance policy and you're covered, let's say, just hypothetically with Geico or Progressive, there's going to be something in their auto policy that says, listen, if you drive and you're under the influence and you cause an accident, we'll pay for the damages, the typical damages that I talked about, but we're not on the hook for punitive damages. So you can't pass that buck along to your insurance company and think, well, they're just going to pay it. Those damages will stick with you in a judgment, and you're personally responsible for those. and they are not dischargeable in bankruptcy. So you can't even have these damages charged against you by a jury and then say, oh, I'll just go file bankruptcy and that'll wipe that out. Those damages will stick with you forever. And so, and obviously, we get collection attorneys involved in our cases if it comes to that. Those attorneys will go and garnish somebody's paycheck, take their IRS tax refunds. There's a lot of ways we can collect those. But going to the right attorney is crucial because there's a method to getting to the judge to ask for punitive damages. It's not an automatic thing. So you've got to have an attorney that has that kind of experience in litigation, that looks outside of the box and is not afraid to pursue that in the lawsuit and get in front of the judge and ask the judge to include punitive damages as one of the counts against the at-fault driver.
If I was the insurance company, I would dread having to go up against either one of you. How many of those cases are settled out of court?
The majority of them.
Are they really?
Yeah. I would say over 95% of cases are settled before the case ever gets to a jury. Even if you're in litigation, you're going through the discovery process, depositions, interrogatories, request to produce, request for admissions, mediation. Most cases will settle before, sometimes even once the trial starts, but before it gets to verdict time for the jury. Most of them, over 95%, would settle.
But there's a caveat to that, Steve, okay? Steve, there's a caveat to that, okay?
Okay.
Let's be 100% clear that the insurance companies, all of them, they keep track of the different law firms. They keep track of who goes to trial and who doesn't. So you'll see that absolutely there's zero doubt about that, okay? And there's ways to do that because you just simply go into the court system in the different counties. They have people who do this that will just look up the attorneys and see which cases have gone to trial in Hernando County, Pinellas County, Dade County, Orange County, all of them, and they'll see the attorneys that have actually gone all the way, so to speak. So it's true that most cases will settle, but what are they settling for? Are they settling for peanuts last minute because the attorney doesn't really want to go to trial because they've never done it before and they get cold feet and they settle right before? Or do they settle for a lot of money before the trial during the litigation process because they know they have been called to task? They know that the attorney is going to go all the way and they don't want to take a chance that a jury is going to rule on the evidence. So they pay. So depending on who the attorneys are, that settlement could be really small or could be really big.
Stephen, that's why it's so important in choosing an attorney that someone, when they're looking for a lawyer, that they pick one with litigation experience. Because even if the case doesn't ultimately go to verdict or get tried, like Angela said, the insurance companies absolutely know who they could mess with and who they can't. We both have had cases individually together where another attorney handled a case pre-suit, meaning before litigation. And there was an offer and the adjuster said, that's the top offer. And it wasn't even enough in some of the cases to pay for the medicals, the outstanding medical bills. And Angela got involved or I got involved. And that settlement number more than tripled, sometimes for policy limits. You're talking going from $15,000 to $75,000. You're talking going from $9,000 to $100,000 in cases where both her and I had got involved in after another attorney. And when we asked the adjuster, why didn't you make this offer before we became involved? That's not fair to our client. And they said, you weren't the attorney. So it's absolutely critical that you get an attorney with litigation experience because first and foremost, the insurance companies will base their offer in part on who's handling the case in terms of an attorney. Secondly, an attorney with litigation experience will prepare the case as if it's going to trial, and it will be a stronger case even pre-suit. They know what evidence to look for. They know what evidence to preserve. They know what evidence to get. They know what the medical report should be saying. They know what your complaints may lead to in terms of a diagnosis. They know how to word or frame your claim so that it gets maximum value in settlement. These are all really important factors that go into building a personal injury claim.
I got to tell you, first of all, that makes so much sense. I got to tell you, I'll bet you I've done a couple hundred personal injury shows over the last 12 years. Do you know that you're the first firm to ever educate our listeners that insurance companies do their background check, their due diligence on the firm? That's the first time I've ever heard it. And it makes so much sense, especially because of the amount of dollars that are being discussed. So,
Yes.
God, kudos to you.
Well, without knowing who your prior attorneys were on the show, it may be because they didn't have the litigation experience and didn't want people to know that.
But that is really important, though. I'm just shocked that's the first time it's ever been brought up because it makes so much sense. You know, when they hire your firm, they are really leveling the playing field, aren't they?
We'd like to think so. I mean, you have to understand, Steve, these insurance companies have, their net worth is what, in the hundreds of millions? They're for-profit corporations. They have an endless amount of money to fight, lawyers like us. But one of the things that is so important is that the firm has the financial capability to fight back. There's a lot of lawyers who don't retain funds to hire experts that will be competitive with the insurance company experts. I mean, think about it. If you don't have the money in your operating account and you need to hire an expert to go against, let's say the insurance companies hired a medical expert, a billing expert, an economist expert, a rehabilitation expert. We have to have experts to combat all of their experts. That costs a lot of money, Steve, a lot.
Exactly.
I will tell you, one trial I had in 2009, it was a 2-week trial, and we spent $160,000 to get the case to trial. So that's a lot of money. And I mean, we put that on the line to try the case, and we didn't lose the case. This was back when I was with another firm and I was a partner there. But just to give you the example, you've got to have a law firm that not only has the experience, but has the financial backing to do it. And Lauren and I are very careful to maintain funds, so that we can fight the big guns and hire the very best experts if we need to.
This is a great time to bring up how you're compensated, because a lot of people don't realize that you work on a contingency basis.
We do, Steve. We don't get paid unless we obtain either a settlement or a verdict on behalf of our client. So there's no retainer fee. There's no money out of pocket for anyone who comes and signs on. Our percentage is a third if we settle it before filing a lawsuit, and 40% if we file a lawsuit and the time has passed for the defendant to answer the lawsuit up until trial. And if we don't obtain a verdict or a settlement, we don't get paid, and we like to get paid. And more importantly, we're from New York and we don't back down from a fight. We invite it.
Yeah, it's I can't tell you how many friends of mine that I know that thought they were big shots. They were great salespeople or great negotiators, and that they could handle this themselves. And I got to tell you, I mean, there's only 3 of them, but I got to tell you, all 3 will tell you now that they left so much money on the table by not having an attorney.
That's true. I represented a wonderful woman probably 12 to 15 years ago she was very smart. She was educated. And she had gotten an offer of $40,000. I won't say from which company. And that was a pretty fair offer. I mean, it seemed like a lot of money at the time. $40,000, it would have been clear to her, non-taxable, and she could have taken it. And something struck her odd, like, why are they offering me this much money? So she came to see me and hired me back then. And interestingly enough, the case ended up settling for close to $400,000 about 18 months later. And, I thought that it would be unfair to take a fee on that first $40,000 because that was something that she had secured on her own. So as a courtesy, I did not take a fee on that $40,000, but I think most lawyers would do that. I didn't do that. And not only did I have a client for life, but I had a friend for life too, because did the right thing. So, but to your point, yes, I mean, that's just a perfect example that they offered her, they offered her 10% of what the case was worth.
Before we get out of here, I want to ask you, do you have concerns? Automobile rates are going sky high. I mean, they're crazy. Do you have concerns that people aren't going to be have auto insurance? I know it's against the law, but the rates are just insane.
That was a concern even before the rates started climbing, because people just don't prioritize in car insurance as a necessity. If they could get away with it, they will. Also, bodily injury liability is not required here in Florida to get on the road. So if somebody hits you and you're injured and they don't have bodily injury coverage, there's no secured pocket of money to go after. That's why we always encourage people, everyone we meet, get as much uninsured motorist coverage as you can afford, because even if the other person caused the accident and doesn't have the proper insurance or any insurance, that will cover you for your injuries.
Give everybody your phone number and your website address so they can contact your office.
Sure, Steve. Our main office is in Tarpon Springs, Florida. We're on the West Coast near Tampa, but we practice throughout the entire state of Florida. Our phone number is area code 727-937-3171. And our website is www.zervosinjurylaw.com. We'd be very happy to speak with anybody. Just give us a call and say you saw us on Steve-O and Sophia's show and you have some questions, and we would be so excited to be able to talk to you.
Ladies, thank you so much. And we're going to be rebroadcasting the show in 2 weeks, and we hope that you will, if you miss any of today's show, that you'll be back with us then. Ladies, thank you so much. We are so lucky to have your firm as our expert in personal injury law.
Thank you, Steve. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. It's such a great firm. That's it for us today. We'll be back again with you next week with more Ask the Experts.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.